We are live. I'm alive. Are you alive?
I'm not only live, but I'm thrilled about this time of year because virtually every day, Paramal, the days get longer. It's my favorite time of the year.
That is
So
true.
I'm buoyed, but I'm also upset because of what's happening in the Ukraine. I mean, a great humanitarian crisis is unfolding, and for no reason, for really no apparent reason.
I know.
And the really bad thing, I mean, besides the fact that there's a lot of people suffering in the Ukraine, it is also commanding all the news as it should, but it's overriding the UN report on the world climate, which is even a bigger and more, it's a bigger crisis, of course, because the earth is warming faster than anybody predicted. There's going to be so much suffering in the years to come. I don't want this to be a downer, but Putin has done nobody favors in this case, because not only are there the atrocities being unfolding in the Ukraine, but it also is commanding all the attention away from what we should be paying attention to, which is the UN report on world climate.
Yeah, but back to your point, I think I'm glad you just recognized the elephant in the room is that we can't have Artful Fly without just recognizing the times we are in right now. And all our prayers go to the people of Ukraine and their leadership.
Yeah. So, tonight, I want to, as we have in the past, kind of address a few of the items that have been in the New York Times as of late. And then I've got kind of a little project I want to share with everybody. And, Paramal, it's probably just a conversation between you and me, because now unbeknownst to us a week ago, we're up talking while President Biden is doing the State of the Union. So, and yet most of the people that actually view this Art Wolf Live, they come in after the fact. So people will rightfully watch the State of the Union. We'll catch up with it on the news later on, but we could not change it yet again. So here we are talking about pictures and things like that. But yeah, it is my favorite time of the year. Everything's warming up, flowers are blooming, and the spring is coming on. So literally, it is my most favorite time of the year.
So what do you have in mind for us today on Artful Fly?
Well, let me share some screens, because as everybody now knows, it's an abridged, it's not abridged, it's just shorter. It's a half-hour program, because last year we would go on for over an hour, and people are wanting their dinners and all that. So I think it's a cool thing to do with a shorter, makes it right to the point. So we're going to click on, here we go. So tonight, a few of the news items. Mount Etna is blowing its top again. And in fact, as I've been paying attention to the world news, there's more and more volcanic activity. This is just a little cinder cone that I leaned against years ago when I was up on Mount Etna to view and photograph the bigger eruption. And it was spectacular. At 10,000 feet, it's cold until the wind shifts and the warmth of the lava was coming our way. And it was just so dramatic how we went from freezing cold to warm. And it has kind of lava has a kind of a earthy smell to it. So it's not only the feeling of the heat, but it's also the smell and the sights and the sounds, because it's a very loud explosion as well. So that was something that we noted. The other thing, which is kind of interesting, is very interesting, in fact, is during this pandemic, Rwanda closed all gorilla viewing. They closed the national park down where the gorillas are. And the result then is not only are they COVID free, but they're also free of the other viruses that humans would naturally pass on to mountain gorillas. They're so closely connected to us that they easily pick up colds. And so within the 1,000 mountain gorillas that live in the volcanoes of Rwanda, Uganda, and the Congo, there is a very low evidence of colds or anything else given to them by the humans. So there's a positive story right there. And and a lot of people know, I'm madly working on a book called Wild that looks at the world international wildlife during the Anthropocene or Anthropocene, the age of man, and how animals are adapting to rapid changing climate, but also increased human presence. So I'm working on that. I kind of fit those trips in between guiding tours, photographic tours. I'll be doing one in Morocco in a couple of weeks. So I have to do that. But then I also squeeze in some photo shoots to kind of fill in around the wildlife that I really want as part of this book. But yeah, how endearing can a mother and a baby just a few feet away? They're such trusting animals at this point. They're very habituated towards increased human presence.
Lovely. Yeah.
Aren't they fun?
Yeah. That is
Butterflies. There was like a low of what, 2000? I've got my notes on here, but the New York Times was talking about the return of the monarchs along the California coast. Last year, everybody was worried that they were going extinct, but in fact, they came back in a big way this year. I want to look for my notes and tell you exactly the numbers. I've got 4 pages of notes. My staff is doing me a great service by flooding me with a lot of information. Where are my butterflies? Let's see. At any rate, so let's just say a whole lot of butterflies have returned, like 250,000 have come back to the Monterey area, where last year there was like maybe 2,500. So that's a really positive story. And these weren't photographed there. They were photographs further south in the mountains of Mexico, but they're the same butterfly. And when you go into a forest of 100 million butterflies in these ancient forests, it's very quiet until they start to flutter above you, and it's a remarkable sight. During the Trump administration, wolves were taken off the Endangered Species Act, and consequently, states like Idaho and Wisconsin renewed hunting for trophies. And in fact, in Wisconsin, in just 3 days, 215 wolves were killed for trophies. But during the Biden administration, they've relisted them as endangered species. This is photographed up in the Lamar Valley, and that was the epicenter of the relocated wolves that came in from Canada. I think it was in the late 90s. And you can see a coyote in the foreground looking at this pack of wolves. And obviously the wolves were fairly content because the coyotes were hammered by these wolves. And the coyotes for the longest time were the top predator, along with the grizzly bears, of course, in Yellowstone. But then when the wolves were reintroduced and start spreading out, many of the coyotes disappeared. So wolves made a comeback, and these are part of the book on Wild, photographed in Yellowstone, and very protected in Yellowstone, but they do migrate out. And let's hope that more states will respect the Endangered Species Act, because, it's crazy to have a trophy wolf in your living room. What's the point? You know what I'm saying? Wherever wolves are repopulating their natural environments, the entire ecosystem becomes in balance. And you see that very clearly in Yellowstone, where the wolves took down a lot of the elk that were eating the vegetation. And without as many elk, the trees were coming back, the beavers came back, and they created ponds, ducks returned, the entire environment changes back to what it was prior to the elimination of wolves. So it's a positive story as well.
Wonderful.
What they have done more exhaustive studies on glaciers, and they're finding that a lot of the mountain glaciers have less water trapped in the ice than originally speculated. I don't honestly know what that means or has ramifications down the road, but so many of the vastly, great populated areas, the country you're from, are reliant on the rivers coming out of the Himalayas and those mountain glaciers. And so if there's less water in there, the rivers will run lower. So that's not a great news. this is a shot of a tabular, the edge of the Weddell Sea, the frozen sea ice. And when those icebergs break off from the sea ice, they're very formidable. Some of them are, several kilometers long, and they float out there in the South Arctic waters, and they start to float north, and eventually they melt as they're heading north. So that's what a tabular iceberg from a frozen sea looks like. Very different than the mountain glaciers that you're looking at. And the mountain glaciers are losing volume every year. And so the thickness of the glaciers are lowering. There's more ice breaking off. And this is a very old, and they would call it crumbling glacier. And in fact, there's a couple of meltwater ponds in this image. This happens to be up in Iceland. And this shot was in Svalbard, that archipelago of islands north of Norway, taken at sunset as the rivers atop the ice are flowing. The last rays of the sun are highlighting the water coming off the glaciers. So I think it's a beautiful color of the water, but it's indicative of the rapidly changing environment that we as humans will face in not the distant future. And you can see how these glaciers are just lining up and falling into the ocean, again, down in Antarctica. So the ice fractures, and as it moves down slope, each one of those fractures becomes a calving glacier. It's spectacular to see. And this is a glacier up in Glacier Bay. And I've been working in Glacier Bay the better part of the last 40 years. And many of the glaciers that extended miles down are now receded to where they're hardly even what they call a tidewater glacier. They aren't even calving into the ocean now, they're calving onto land. So we've been noticing climate change for that many years. It's been evident for the people like myself that have worked in the natural environment. Now it's becoming unavoidable. And so here's a calving glacier up in Glacier Bay.
How big is this? This is, I'm assuming, really big.
Yes. I mean, it's extraordinary. You can see little gulls in the lower left of this image, but they are they're much closer to me. I mean, I can't estimate, in all honesty, Parimal, what the tonnage of these calving glaciers would be, but many of the glaciers, when they pop up and they float around, are the size of apartment buildings.
Wow.
And this one, for instance, down in Antarctica, came off a glacier that was coming off a mountain rather than the frozen sea. So you see these jagged castle-like glaciers. They're quite remarkable, very photogenic, but it's also indicative of the rapidly changing ice. There's something like, what was it? 250,000 glaciers on the planet. My God, every time 215,000 glaciers are on the planet. And so many of them are, melting. Most of them are melting and receding. Okay, so now we've got, what do we got? A little over 15 minutes to, I'll show a little project I have in the back of my mind. As you know, and many people that have been paying attention know that I'm out often photographing in every environment around the planet, various books. I've got 6 books under contract now, and there'll be more down the road. And while I'm working on those projects, I'm also in the environment of a lot of cultures, and I got this idea of bringing some black paper in notepads and white drawing pens, and asking basically 7- and 6-year-olds to draw their favorite animal just to see what they would come up with. And so I'm still slowly amassing it. I have to be honest that COVID has kind of put a, not a damper, but it's delayed a lot of my intended projects. Now I'm going to get back on the road starting tomorrow. And I've got trips to Brazil, Morocco, Spain, and Israel, all on one trip coming up in a week and a half. So I'm really gearing up to getting back on the road and out there. But okay, so now these are the Himba tribe of northern Namibia. And I have no idea whether they've ever drawn with a pen or a pencil. I doubted they're living in tiny little huts out there in the desert. And so I have no idea what this animal is. We don't have communication in a spoken language, but it was just interesting to see what these various cultures would come up with. And again, I chose to mostly wanted 6-year-olds, because by the time a child is in school and they turn 7 or 8, they start to draw within the lines. They draw what they think we as adults want. But when you're 6 years old, you still have that freedom to draw from purely your imagination. So
very good said.
Yeah, this could easily be a monitor lizard that would live in their environment. In fact, it looks very reptilian. This is a very emaciated, probably a Bisa oryx or a springbuck. And see, after they've drawn it, then I get on into Lightroom and I boost the contrast between the light and the dark to make it a little graphic. And overall, my idea was to take all the drawings from all these different cultures and create a combined, almost abstract Jackson Pollock-esque montage of all these drawings. And from a distance, it would just look like total abstract. But as you got closer, you would see all these different animals drawn by other humans. And then I would start to sell them as posters or something like that to draw and raise money to build schools in these environments. So it's completely altruistic, but it takes a lot longer than I expected. So
it's a very, very good. I got to say, I didn't know about that idea until you shared right now. For our viewers, it's not like we talk about everything, but
I've never talked about this. I've never talked about this. So you like the idea?
I love the idea. I love the idea.
So this is a lion, a giraffe. So the children of that environment, they tend to draw what they know. And so giraffes and rhinos and elephants, if you're an African child, becomes something. Now, if you're an Australian Aboriginal, like this young boy taken in Broome, Australia, he is drawing something he knows, which is a sea turtle that would come up on the beaches and lay their eggs. And so there he is. Oh, and that's the sea turtle. Quite nice.
Nice.
Here's a young Aboriginal girl, and she's got what? A kangaroo, a sea turtle, and a snake. And so those are some of,
She's, I think, signing her art.
Yeah. She's even got her name signed. Quite proud. And I just love it. I mean, I just love seeing what these children of that age are coming up with. Remember, I was trained as a painter, but also a school art teacher. And so this is kind of getting back to watching these kids draw. And that's why I know that at a certain age, they start to draw within the lines. But prior to that, they're free to come up with whatever they think.
It's wonderful. Good idea.
Thank you. Well, and the kids were great. So here's a kangaroo, different version of the kangaroo. I'm not showing you all the kids that we're drawing just because we do have a time limit, but that's a pretty good kangaroo, I would say.
That's a pretty good kangaroo.
And the kid in Africa would have no idea what this animal was. So it's, and probably a wallaby. Pretty cute. And back to Africa, there's so many different cultures and tribes in Africa that, and they populate all different environments. So I forgot, I got my notes. I forgot exactly where this was drawn, maybe Kenya. But they loved having these black paper and white ink, which, even if they have pens or pencils, it's generally going to be white paper and, something less dramatic.
This could very well be called, for your project, Make Art, Not War.
Very salient, very salient. Most people on the planet hate war. And we're seeing how much the countries are lining up opposing Russia. And I feel sorry, quite honestly, for the Russian people. So many people just want to live like you and I do, free, and take care of their families and live their environments, but they are living under a very strange and autocratic dictator.
Mhm.
Anyway, I look at this animal. It looks like a very square Cape buffalo, I guess.
Hmm.
But look at that kid's intent. He's quite
Yeah, it's
proud.
like, this is the real deal.
Yeah. So I think that's they've got big African porcupines, and look at now we've got I think these are seals. I might have these out of place because obviously kids in Kenya aren't going to probably be drawing whales or seals. So I probably got these out of place. That looks like a hippo to
A
me
hippo, that's a hippo.
with 5 legs.
Yeah, maybe the middle one is not a leg. Don't assume.
Okay, well, we won't go there. Another porcupine with a happy little face.
Yeah.
These probably, I have no ideas what these are. Maybe they're bats. I have no idea.
Can I just say one comment? If you notice
Yeah.
something, they're all happy. Most of them are happy. That shows the natural state that kids want to be in, and we as adults also want to be in, but sometimes we just mess ourselves up.
Do you think? Very formal giraffe here.
Yeah.
The squares have it here. I
It's
love
a
that.
designer giraffe.
Yeah, and look at the little feet on and the toes on this critter. So again, 6-year-olds are so free. And now we're up in Alaska. These are Gwich'in. No, they're not. They're Athabascan Indians on the shores of Lake Iliamna. And I think that's a wolf. It looks like he's been in a fight.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but look at that. I think that's very creative and very free. Very interesting drama.
Yeah.
And I think the same kid, this may be a salmon. Yeah, I think that's a fish of some sort, probably a salmon.
Yeah.
And look, bears. Now we got bears, and who knows what the critter on the left is. But again, Athabascan Indians, they could be the Iliamna tribe. I have to do my research. Obviously, a bear with salmon in the river.
And salmon, for sure.
And that's what these kids, I mean, they eat a lot of salmon. The elders are going out catching salmon in the rivers. They're drying the salmon. And in the summer months, it's interesting to see all the rows of salmon drying, and that will sustain them all winter long. But
I gotta say, just one more point, even the art that kids are making, it's actually so many simple lines, but how much clarity they have with those simple lines.
Yeah. No, I think it's wonderful to see what's in their imagination, but also to see they're not, if you're a kid that's in Australia, you're not going to be drawing a bear with salmon because they simply don't know. So their favorite animals are what they see.
Mm.
And that's obviously a bear right there, big old rounded ears. Okay, if you're in the South Pacific, you might go for sea snakes or eels or all sorts of fish.
Yeah.
And that looks like a whale to me. It could be, no, it could be a fish too.
Could be a piranha. If it's in South of America, it could be a deadly piranha.
Look at the expression on this kid.
Yeah, it's a great expression.
And that kid's quite happy. Look at that.
He's very proud, very happy. He should be.
Oh, and this is a very colorful fish. I have no idea what that one is, but you know, there's nudibranchs, there's all sorts of tropical fish that have all sorts of spots and stripes. But it's fun when they've done it then to play in Lightroom and boost the contrast, and then it just becomes really quite nice.
Interesting.
And jellyfish.
Jellyfish, sorry, what am I thinking? Yes.
Yeah. So look at that.
It's beautiful.
I think so. Yeah, so this was down in Pacific Islands, somewhere I forgot. I've got to refer to my notes. I'm at that age, you know, you got to refer to your notes.
Somewhere on planet Earth, somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
And another, I think, turtle comes up, more fish. You know, the funny thing is, I just remember these kids wanted to draw like 10, 15 animals, and I had so much black paper to work with that I restricted them to like, okay, draw 3 animals, your favorite 3 animals.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe a shark with a bunch of teeth.
Yeah.
At any rate, I'm almost done here, but I just wanted, I've never really shared this with anybody. It's work in progress. And someday it'll be a project that may raise some money for, backcountry schools.
It'll be a great project. I look forward to this. I'm intrigued myself. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Almost crowdsourcing from the kids their imagination about our planet and the animals, and then doing something back for them.
Well, and this actually came out of my study on graffiti around the world and how people draw on walls and back alleys. And it's just a universal human need or desire to leave a mark. And so I thought, okay, if the adults are very similar about that, what would the kids be like? And so I want to see the commonality of the human condition and how kids are so free and manipulated at that age that they could have the freedom to draw their favorite animals.
Yeah.
Angelfish here. And up in Iceland, I don't know if that's a sheep. We're up in Iceland now, so I'm trying to have, a good representation of very elegant puffin by this young Icelander. That's a definite puffin with a happy face.
Puffin. Look at the beak. That's a puffin.
That's a puffin, but look at the eyes and the happy face.
Happy face.
Yeah.
Happy puffin.
Yeah. And we're back in Africa, and look at an elephant with fancy shoes. Yeah, that's a good elephant. I like that one. Lion.
This is a lion. Yeah.
Oh, this is my favorite. If I have to say, I think this is the most beautiful of everything. It just holds completely together. And it's just and I would say that's a zebra.
It's a zebra and a beautiful movement.
Yeah, don't you think? I mean,
movement.
Very elegant.
Very elegant.
It could be a logo on a t-shirt.
Absolutely.
And another lion. And looks like a rhino, or no, that's an elephant with tusks. Yeah, and this almost looks like a rhino.
Yeah, it could be a rhino with the 2 tusks, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the horns, I mean, yeah, giraffes. So
we have a lot of giraffes. Then there's the last couple, I have no idea. I think that may be a big male lion with a big fancy mane.
Yeah.
And then there's this, I think this is the last one, and I have no idea what this thing is. But
okay, people, let's throw it out to the people, everyone in the audience, what do you all think? What is this animal? I have no idea either.
What is this animal?
It is probably the amoeba from which we all evolved. Who knows? Amoeba.
At any rate, I think that's what I wanted to share with you. So I'm going to close that, and hopefully, where am I? Kyle, where do I come here? Kyle has got job security here. Thanks, Kyle. At any rate, yeah, we're almost done. We've got 1 more minute, but yeah. So to reiterate, I'm traveling quite often now. I'm going to be teaching a workshop tomorrow up in Port Townsend, following week of the Olympics. And then right after that, I come back on Sunday night, and on Tuesday morning, I head to Brazil for 4 days down the Amazon. From there, I fly into Morocco and conduct a photo tour with Gabrielle, who just arrived from Bangkok this morning. And then we fly from there, from Morocco, into Barcelona. Oddly enough, I've never been to Spain. So I'll be in a
beautiful place.
I'll be in Barcelona for a couple of days with Gab. Then he's going into Romania and his wife and son will fly into Romania. He's got, family things to take care of up there. And then I have friends coming in from New York, New Jersey, and we're going to do the days leading up to Easter in Sevilla. We call it Seville, Spain. Mm-hmm. And amazing opportunities to photograph for the Act of Faith book. And then will be in Jerusalem on Easter. And
Wow.
then shortly after that, I'm home. And then a couple of weeks later, back to Madagascar. We got Mongolia. I mean, it's just going to be a
Fact.
full year.
Fact.
So,
Are you going to meet Simon Benny in Jerusalem?
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
good. Let me just, I know we're out of time, but let me just give a shout out to everyone who dialed in. Just a few names, I'm just going to say hi, and then we can call it a wrap. So
Okay.
Stephen is watching. Hey, Stephen, good that you could join. Jacqueline, Zubin. Zubin thinks that last animal was a dinosaur. Yeah, maybe, good point. Could be. Craig, Frank, Christine Eckhoff, Christine, why not? Rick, Pepin, Kyle Jones, we can ignore Kyle. Barbara, Donna, and so many other people just, dialing in. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, and hopefully you enjoyed Make Art, Not War.
Make art, not war. Yes. Now, okay, so next time we will have something engaging to say. Just tune in. Parimal, you look great. And Parimal's in his brand new home. It's an old home, but your own home, and it looks great. And we're going to have dinner next week, right?
That's right. And then everyone, you can see Art's book. I just put it for show. Like, I don't put any of his work. I'm not a big fan, but just
I know you're not. All right, Parimal.
Okay, take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.